Welcome to Week 4 Preps Preview. I'm Aren alongside Justin Conn. We got plenty of football to talk about this week, including just kind of what we learned from last week. Justin, what'd you kind of take away from last week?
One thing I really thought kind of played itself out, and it's sort of a theme for the first 3 weeks of the season, is the Okaw Valley Conference. The pecking order is pretty much kind of returned to what we've always known here the last probably 5 years as the pecking order to be, which basically with Tuscola and St. Teresa had down years last year, looking like they're sort of on the bounce back this year, and they look like legitimate contenders for a playoff spot. And the teams that have sort of been down are down still. So Maroa, Tolono are still good. Monticello, obviously is kind of where it's been the last few years. So, and there's always like that one kind of wild card team that comes up, and now that's for the last couple of years has been Argenna. So yeah, it's just sort of. Right when you think maybe things will kind of shake up a little bit, the final year looks a lot like the last several years having sort of that, you look at that problem that the other teams have had, with the pecking order in the conference, and the reason why they are cutting away. Well, right now, Maroa, Tolono, and Monticello are probably the three best teams in the conference, and those are the ones, or three of them, that are going to be out next year. And you start looking at, well, what would the CIC look like? Tuscola and St. Teresa are probably the two best teams right now, but there would be then some other teams maybe in the mix for some playoff spots that aren't right now. So, right now I think that those teams are probably saying, yeah, this is a good move for us, because I'll tell you what, Maroa, Tolono, and Monticello aren't going anywhere. Those are going to be great teams for the foreseeable future. So,
all right. So your top four are Maroa, Unity, Monticello, Argenna. Do you think St. T or Tuscola have a chance to break into that group at all?
Well, we'll find out this week, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit with St. T and Argenna, but I think that St. Teresa is probably the one team that can kind of maybe jump up into that group, at least kind of looking at it right now. What did you learn from this week, Aren?
I know we had the story Scott wrote, and you have CGB's line, and they're brand new, 5 new guys, they have a new tight end. Are they going to be able to pave the way for Steve Isbell, for D Woods? Lena Winslow, obviously they showed that. And then last week, a big win against Arthur Lovington and Atwood Hammond. And I don't think there's any question that they are the definitive favorite in the Little Okaw right now. I think, with that line just kind of being, it's no longer so much a question mark anymore. That what they're capable of, and they're able to kind of do the same things they did last year. You have Cole Blickensurfer that has another year under his belt of being a quarterback, and you have all those other guys. And obviously the defense has been just as good as they were last year. And I love talking about the offense, but man, that defense only held Arthur Lovington, which had 2 really good games, to just 7 points last week, which is just as impressive, I think, as anything else. So you have CGB, who I think is kind of the clear step above, and they had Lena Winslow, and now they have Georgetown Ridge Farm coming up this week. Another really good test to kind of see how they stack up against some of the other teams outside of their conference. So it'll be a really good test to see, how they do this next week.
Yeah, I think right now, looking at Cerro Gordo, they look a lot like they did last year.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks when you watch their games and kind of see their boxes, it's pretty much carbon copy. So, right now they have it going pretty well. One thing I want to talk about were some things that maybe through the first 3 weeks that we could say, hey, I was wrong about this to start the season. This is something that I kind of missed out on. And for me, I think there's two sides of the coin. I think first of it's St. Teresa. They're better than I thought. I think that I didn't think they would move the ball offensively. And I thought if they did, it was going to have to completely revolve around Christian Williams. But that's not the case. Their line looks great. I saw him against A&M this week and was really impressed. I think we saw flashes of what he was capable of last year, but he's just such a tough runner, especially when he gets the blocking. He's tough to bring down once he gets ahead of steam. So, right now I was off about them. I think they're definitely a playoff team this year, and I did not predict that to start the season. On the other side, I think Sullivan, I thought they would be better. Sullivan, Okaw Valley, I thought they'd be a little better. I thought that Week 7 game between St. T and Sullivan would sort of decide who makes the playoffs for those teams, and that would be a really exciting game. But right now, St. Teresa looks clearly like the better team. Sullivan would have to beat A&M this week to even sort of be in that position to where they could get to 5 wins. And A&M isn't bad. I mean, they're not off to a great start, but they have some really great athletes at running back and have produced Sullivan really hasn't shown much of any consistency offensively at all. So right now that they're not probably going to be able to reach that 4 or 5 win mark. It doesn't look like right now. So I was definitely off about them.
Yeah. Before the season, I put in Flora's capsule, it's a rebuilding year. They're really not going to be. I know you put at least they don't play Casey. And they have 2 wins already. They were a point shy of tying, Newton. They had a missed point after attempt. They're a quietly pretty good team. I know they have been able to move the ball. Their defense has been really good this year. Flora, they have Avila and Cumberland in the schedule. Those are winnable games. I mean, you have a team that has kind of had that 1-win season the last couple of years. They could have 3, 4. I mean, I don't know, maybe 5 wins this season. They already had 2 already. Ethan Lieb at quarterback has been really efficient with the ball passing and getting a little bit of running game as well. So Flora, after a couple of years, they haven't had the best of years. This is a very, very good start for them out of 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's a nice bounce back for them because for a few years there they were a nice every year playoff team. They gave A&M a real good game a few years ago against a real good Raiders team. But then, boy, when it hit the skids, it really fell off fast, and you wondered if maybe that was a numbers problem. But it seems like maybe they're getting back to the kind of, and it's a different coaching staff obviously now, but getting sort of back to the kind of football that they're capable of playing. Why don't we do our top 5 right now, Aaron? I know we're going to do this week, but boy, it's starting to sort of look like things are going to gel into one spot for a while. So we'll see if we maybe we'll take a couple weeks off from this after this week. But I think ours look pretty similar from some initial talks.
We don't talk at all about our top 5 before we come in here. And then looking at it's pretty much the same. So yeah, what do you have for your top 5?
Okay, number 5 is a tough one, and it always is. But MacArthur, I dropped them from 4 to 5 this week because of their loss, but they played pretty well in the game, so it's kind of hard to really knock them down too far. And I know there are some really good 3-0 teams. Robinson is one. I know that we got called out on the last week for not talking about Robinson, and I agree. They should be in the mix for that 5 spot, and probably some votes in 3A as well. I think that's another the 3A poll. I think that they probably start at least give them a look now. I think for that, and honestly, Olney, Argenta, Nokomis, St. T, and Arthur are also sort of in that mix for that 5 spot. But I really felt confident with MacArthur being
Argenta.
Yeah, I think I saw.
Okay.
They're right there. So and then number 4, Monticello. I know we have both like Monticello, and I don't think they're going to lose any games until possibly the Unity game. Number 3, Cerro Gordo-Bement. I read online before I came in that they've won 18 straight regular season games. That's courtesy of Cerro Gordo superfan Barry Kripe on Facebook. But 18 in a row in regular season. That's maybe Casey has got a streak that's close to that, but that's pretty impressive. Number 2, Casey Westfield, and number 1, Maroa. Even if Maroa loses this week, I don't know that I drop them out of my top spot. Depending on what kind of game it is, but
right, yeah. It's kind of like last year where it's that 1-point game. It's relatively the same. But yeah, I mean, like I said, coming in, I looked at his top 5, and it's exactly the same. So I have MacArthur, Monticello, CGB, Casey, and the Maroa at number 1. So looking ahead to next week, there's a handful of really good games this week, starting with Maroa, Unity, always a really good game. And, last year Maroa had that, 7-6 loss to Unity. They'll be in Tolono this year. Are you excited for this game?
Oh, no question. This is the first time I think it's been number 1 against number 1, where they're both ranked number 1 and 2, Maroa in 2A and Tolono in 3A. But they're always sort of in that mix where they're a top 2 or 3 team in the rankings, so that's not that different. One thing, and I wrote about this a little bit this week for Friday's paper, is that this next year this starts being a real rivalry where they're playing for the conference. Right now it's still a non-conference game basically, so it's almost like a novelty where it's also a good early test for those 2 teams that they're not going to see a lot of those during the regular season. So I know that both of those teams like that game. Like this game for that reason. Going in, though, I don't know what you think, but I think Maroa is the clear favorite, probably for the first time where you can really say they have more talent than Tolono. That may not mean they beat them, but I think they're clear favorite. They just have more weapons.
Yeah, you look at Tolono, they've had some close tests. I mean, Tuscola it was a 9-point game, and you look at what Nick Bates was able to do. I think he was 15 for 32, had almost 300 yards in that game, and Jack Hackaday's a pretty good thrower too. He's pretty good at quarterback. So you look at Tolono able to kind of give up that passing game a little bit, and that kind of plays right into Maroa's hands. So you have to think with all the returning talent that Maroa has. I think that is a game that they'll win next week. I think
Tolono, has an advantage maybe on the line a little bit. I think particularly they have a really good D line, and that could give Maroa some trouble. But when you start matching up receivers against defensive backs on both sides of it, it starts looking really lopsided. So we'll see from there. The other big game this weekend is maybe it's more of just the emotional rivalry type thing, and that's MacArthur-Eisenhower. It's a little lopsided on paper. I think MacArthur's, like they have been for the last several years, a huge favorite. But it's always a good game. It's always a fun game.
Yeah, I know for the city rivalry game, like you said, I think it'd be more emotionally charged. I know Drew Wagers has talked about getting a win going into this game. That was real big, just to get a little momentum heading into this big week. So I think MacArthur has a pretty clear edge, and I think they'll probably take this game by at least a touchdown, maybe probably 2 or more. They've just played so well this season. They put up 20 points against Normal Westwood. No one has done this year. I think hopefully Eisenhower keeps it close. It is a close game, but I just see MacArthur running away with this. So
I will say this, and whether it's been coincidence or not, since I've been here, I would say since the 08 game. What MacArthur has done in this game and they've won it every year, but whether they've blown them out or it's been sort of a sloppy performance where they needed something late or just held off Eisenhower, if they've dominated Eisenhower, they've went on to have a great second half of the season and made the playoffs. If they have struggled against them, they've struggled down the stretch and not made the playoffs. So, for whatever reason, it does seem to, at least, and maybe that's just coincidence, but it does seem to give them some momentum either way. So I think that's something to look at as well. Another good game I wanted to get to real quick, Argenta-St. Teresa, like I talked about earlier. If St. Teresa could win this game, which I think I wouldn't have given them a chance before the season started, and now I think that they have a shot. I think it'll be a lot of scoring in this game. We'll see. Yeah. But I think if St. T wins this game, all of a sudden they could be looking at a 6-3 season and actually a little better than just making the playoffs. But it's going to be tough. I think that both teams have really done a good job on the offensive line pretty much all year. So I think there'll be a lot of scoring. That could be a fun one to watch. It'll be a bit of a track meet, my guess is.
And the other one, Mount Zion, Mattoon. These teams finally get out of that brutal out-of-conference schedule. And I mean, really, either team. It's so hard to kind of figure out where Mount Zion and Mattoon kind of fall with the rest of I think they're still at the head of the conference, but as far as their matchup with each other, it's been one-sided for every game so far. Mattoon, the defense has not looked good. Every team they played, that team's had their best offensive game every week. I mean, they've scored more points against Mattoon than any other game they've had. Mount Zion's had the same kind of struggle. So we'll see. Is week 4 kind of a time to kind of a new season for them, a kind of clean slate, going to the Apollo. I mean, I could see Mattoon or Mount Zion, running the table either way, because I think after that, Effingham is kind of there, but it's a pretty sharp drop-off after those 3 for the rest of the Apollo. So, week 4, after that brutal out-of-conference schedule, week 4 is kind of, I think, the most important Apollo game in the year.
No question about it. So, plenty to see this week. Make sure you check out HR Preps on Twitter and Facebook, of course, hrpreps.com. And also in print as well. So we'll see you out there.